the supply management idea become more and more accepted. The supply management idea become more and more accepted. The supply management idea become more and more accepted. The supply management idea become more and more accepted. supply management idea become more and more accepted. The supply management idea become more and more accepted.
Good afternoon, good evening, China, good morning, Americas, good day, Europe. Thanks very much for being with us today. This is the 30th anniversary of EIPM. I'm very proud to be with you, and thanks very much to be with us for this 30th anniversary. During 30 years, EIPM has been the paramount of, in terms of education, in terms of thinking, in terms of doing learnings, doing tools. During 30 years, we have been working with you, and for 24 years, we have been working with you for the conference. 30 years anniversary with an MBA, with executive diploma, with certification. For 30 years, we have been with you companies and also making research. So it's a pleasure to start this anniversary with you during this conference. And this conference is the 24th one. As you know, every year the conference is a lot of discussion, a lot of coffee break, a lot of champagne, a lot of fun also. And the conference, you know this conference about, we had the chance to have great speakers in a nice, fun way, but at the same time, very professional. This year, you understand that we can't do that, and it's a pity, but it's a pity because we're not going to meet you face to face, we're not going to get this champagne, we're not going to get this coffee, we're not going to get fun together, but we're much more. This year, we are over 1,000 people coming from all around the world. Why we were just European people. So the world is shrinking. We have much more people at the same time, but we're not going to discuss together face to face. In another end, we're going to get exactly the same professionalism. We're going to get the same type of people, get the same type of speakers, 12 speakers. And the very nice point is this year, you know, the topic is about toward fifth generation. Toward fifth generation is because it's about the books we just wrote, which is published in Amazon these days. You know, we are facing a big crisis. We are facing a very difficult time. We are facing a very challenging period. But at the same time, we get a lot of opportunities. It's very challenging for us because purchasing, procurement, sourcing can become even greater. So we have great opportunities for us, everybody, and also for the organization. So just what I was willing to tell you, just to conclude this introduction, is yesterday we have been working on tackling risks and also lowering financial break-even points with great speakers. And today we're going to cover two more points, which is revisiting supply chain footprint and investing in new technologies. I'm sure you're going to get fun. I'm sure you're going to love what you're going to hear. I know some of these ideas. We're not together. You're on YouTube. You're on different channels around the world. And it's a pleasure whenever you go from through Archon and Geneva to come on our campus. So thanks very much. You're more than welcome again. Thanks very much for being with us. I'm just going to leave you for some minutes and meet you back in another room for discussing with you. Hey, thanks very much to be here, just running from the other room. I'm very pleased, very welcome for these second days. Welcome the word. I'm not going to go back to all the welcome. As I just said some minutes ago, we're welcoming here you for the second days, and it's just great. So we got some information about what was the topics, what were the topics of yesterday. I'm going to go back a bit on the four topics we're covering during these 2 days. What's quite interesting in this in these topics is the fact that the four topics are not at all related, are not at all purchasing topics. They are related to purchasing and procurement. And this proves if you go to risk, if you go to innovation, if you go to supply chain and innovation, as I say, these four topics are not pure purchasing procurement. And these things, but first, purchasing procurement is to support the business because all these topics are business oriented. So first, the first point is purchasing is to support the business. And we have to think about that. The second point is we say that purchasing procurement is influencing the business. And this also is very important. And the last point is we say purchasing procurement is part of the business. So the first point we have to think about these topics is the topics are not, don't expect to, we're not going to speak only about procurement purchasing. We're going to speak about
the elements of purchasing which are going to influence the business. So this is the first very important element. The second point I would like to insist on is these topics are related to a turbulent pre-COVID period, such as all the new technologies, the political crisis, erratic raw materials changes, and so on and so forth. So these turbulences, which were existing before the COVID, has been accelerating during the COVID and after the COVID. So the very important point I would like to insist on now is about the turbulence. And we are in the turbulent world. We know that. We need to be agile, but turbulence means always a notion of time acceleration, time deceleration. And this is what we would like to insist also on, the elements of time, the time frame, the speed, the pace. And we want to focus and to highlight these elements of time. And this is one point we have been insisting on the fifth generation purchasing, newly booked from EIPM and Dr. Hervé Legendre, When Pace Meets Power. And you understand why the title of this conference, because it's kind of really linked to all these notions of time and turbulence. And you find that in the book. What I want also to say is some of you have been attending this conference yesterday, and I want to thank them. Welcome to the newcomers. And we're going to not to speak about tackling risks and lowering break-even point for the ones who did not get the chance to be yesterday. You still can go back on YouTube when we're going to be published by beginning of the week. Today we're going to cover two new topics, as I said before: revisiting the supply chain and investing in new technologies. For each of these topics, as yesterday, we're going to have 3 speakers first, and then we're going to have a roundtable, a discussion with one moderator. Each of this session on investing in new technology and the session on revisiting supply chain is about 1 hour and a half. And in between, we're going to have 10-minute breaks. So I hope you are fine. We're just going to jump in. You know, I'm going to just take this, as you were traveling, before you were traveling long time, so you were take this, an EIPM one is much better. So you take your time. Now we're going to jump in the first topic, which is about revisiting supply chain. This point is quite important. It's, since some years, everybody was speaking about, and we understood that the competition were frequently more in between the supply chain, but just in between the business themselves. So this was kind of given, and given before the COVID. COVID crisis has been showing that in this global world and this global crisis, supply chain competition seems to be linked and associated to the shorter supply chain and to the less risky supply chain, much more than to any other more sophisticated and complex approach. So this is one point. And based on the fact, based on this fact, saying that we have to shorten the supply chain to take the safer supply chain, it's quite interesting to say what's the role of purchasing, what's the role of procurement in. We have been working on supply chain, but now we have to change our mindset about the supply chain itself. So for this first topic, I'm very pleased to welcome the 3 speakers who are Matteo Calschmidt from the University of Bergamo, is head of department. François Bacalou is CPO and director in Suez. And Dominique Lebigot, who is from Moi Tennessee and who is CPO. The panel discussion will be moderated by Christophe Durcourt, who is a partner in Argo & Co. I'm just taking that because I'm quite relaxed now. So to start this first topic I'm going to welcome, and I'm very pleased to welcome Matteo Calschmidt. Ciao, Matteo. Matteo, as you guess, is an Italian professor from the University of Bergamo. He has been working with us collaborating with us for 6 years, more or less, and working mainly on different topics associated to supply chain. Matteo, the floor is yours.
what do we mean by reshoring first?
Well, thank you, Ray. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, reshoring is typically defined as corporate decisions that companies take regarding the home country's partial or total relocation of their production, typically to serve local or regional or global demands. So typically reshoring is something that happens after companies decided to offshore part of their activities in other countries, often for looking for lower manufacturing costs, for example, or to access specific resources. But for some reasons, companies then decide that they want to move back activities, typically back to their home country, or to have a strong relocation of that activity. Reshoring is quite not really a new phenomenon. It started happening significantly in the last 10 years at least, but we have seen quite a growth in the number of cases of companies doing this process. Sometimes we refer to reshoring as backshoring, meaning that they typically shore back home. Sometimes they refer just to nearshoring, meaning that you just take things closer and not really in your home country. But all these elements are typically referred to what we call reshoring of manufacturing activities.
Thanks a lot, Matteo. I understood that some studies have been initiated in Europe in order to understand better the reshoring decisions. Could you give us some understanding about these studies?
Yes, when the phenomenon of reshoring became wider and wider, emerged very clearly that there were some issues in understanding really the phenomenon. The first reason was that there is no official data collection about reshoring, meaning that there are no institutional bodies tracking this phenomenon systematically. So there are no statistics, let's say, at least officially, in Europe at least. Also, it's difficult to track this phenomenon because companies sometimes don't like to share a lot of information about this kind of process because they think it's a strategic decision, so they want to keep it for themselves. And sometimes I think that they believe that it may be perceived as a managerial mistake, meaning, oh, I offshored, I made a bad decision, and then I'm coming back. But there are several projects going on concerning this phenomenon. I'd like to maybe mention some of the most known one. For example, there is a project called Makers Rise, which is an EU project that has different research streams related to manufacturing, and there is one specific on reshoring based on a multinational group looking at what is happening in Europe. There are a couple of other interesting reshoring projects taking part in the northern part of Europe, mainly Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, looking at what companies there are doing. Another interesting project is the European Manufacturing Survey, which is again a EU project that has mapped the decisions in manufacturing of several thousands of European companies, and they have a specific focus also on reshoring. Also, the European Reshoring Monitor is an interesting initiative. It's an observatory on Europe. Very interesting because they have been working mainly using news data collection, so collecting news coming from any source possible, and that's an interesting way to collect this data. So let's say that there are some projects going on, very well structured and developed, trying to make a little bit understanding of what the phenomenon is taking place.
Okay, thank you. So maybe going to the core questions, what really motivates company to reshore, relocate some of their activities?
Well, actually, this, I guess, it's probably the key question. So it's the key question for companies that some would like to understand why they should do it. It is a key question also for those that look and research this topic. Typically, there are three main strategic orientations that companies refer to when they need or when they want to reshore. The first one is what we call market seeking. So sometimes companies decide to reshore because the market requires them to do that, because they need to get closer to their market, or the market somehow asks them to do that. We can encompass here phenomena like the made-in effect, for example, or the specific access to the market, or some perception by the market that making and manufacturing abroad is not a matter, maybe an issue of quality, or maybe an issue of sustainability, for example. Other companies do this because they are more efficiency seeking. Several companies discover that when they offshore, typically looking for efficiency in terms of cost. Indeed, some costs reduce, but many other costs tend to increase. For example, logistic costs, control costs, quality costs. And so some companies decided to reshore because if you do that properly, costs can be somehow saved. You can optimize your logistics activities. So these companies tend to look for efficiency from this perspective. A third typical orientation is what we call resource seeking. So companies that try to restore because they need to have access to specific resources that they have difficulties in finding in the location where they are. This is probably the more challenging of the strategic orientations among these three, because typically this is a problem that many companies face when they move for specific resources, but they don't get access easily to other complementary resources that they need. This is, for example, an interesting area where we discuss about the concept of reshoring readiness, so being ready to reshore. Obviously, a key issue is related to the management of the trade-offs among the different drivers, because you reshore, for example, to get access to specific competences. On the other side, you lose maybe in benefit of lower costs. So you have to renounce a little bit the positive effects in terms of cost in order to get access to something else. Or again, you may have, by reshoring, a reduction in logistics costs or in the complexity and the risk of your supply chain. But on the other side, you lose the access to a foreign market, which was potentially interesting. Today, I would say that most of the discussion is around what companies do this, mainly by looking also at elements like innovation and sustainability, and in particular, how these two topics interplay with efficiency. So to which extent companies can still be competitive on the market, but try to use reshoring as an innovation tool and a sustainability perspective. I would say that today the real issue is not only understanding whether you should do it or not, but also how to do it if you decide to do that thing. I would say that the key question that the companies address from this point of view is whether to do the right thing, so whether to reshore or not, so which is the right thing to do. But the second problem is that when you have taken this decision, the real problem is do that thing right. So do that thing in a proper way. And our research shows that, oddly enough, it's more important to do that thing right rather than take the strategic decision properly. The big challenge is take a decision that you think, that you believe is the right one, and then do it well. Hopefully this is going to solve your problems, or at least make you a little bit more competitive.
Thank you. And what do you see as the role for procurement here? Any difference with going to a new country?
Well, actually, most of the discussion about reshoring is about reshoring of manufacturing. However, I would say that attention is given also to reshoring of procurement, meaning revising the procurement strategy, typically in favor to local procurement. I would say that the key role in procurement, first of all, is linking the reshoring decision to managing a local versus global supply network, meaning that when you move things closer to your country or your home country, then you still need to manage supply, and maybe you need to revise also your supply strategy. And often the two things cannot be considered as separate decisions. Also, it's fundamental that procurement is involved in evaluating the impact of the supply network on the supply network of a reshoring decision. Let's say that I would say that today we indeed need to talk about transnational supply networks, not really international, national, but transnational is a key point. And also I would suggest that procurement is fundamental in evaluating the reshoring readiness. So the availability of competences and the availability of complementary resources and the complexity in getting access to this. Some cases that we have been studying showed that some reshoring decisions failed because procurement was somehow involved not in the right moment, considering that essentially procurement was not going to be a problem. And most of the cases, then the real issue was then finding the right suppliers locally, because maybe the supply that you had, the global operator, was not really interesting or not available to support you in this operation. As a matter of fact, my perception is that sometimes the wrong idea is reshoring is a top-down strategic decision, and it involves mainly manufacturing, when that's not true. That's indeed also a procurement element, a procurement decision. In particular, the evaluation, for example, of the total cost of ownership of such a decision is something that procurement is really fundamental with. There are a couple of interesting initiatives that, for example, provide total cost of ownership tools really to evaluate these decisions, and it's very evident from these applications that procurement is something that
Grazie mille, Matteo. Thanks very much, Matteo. Very interesting discussion and presentation. You're working on research. All these ideas about supplier network was just great, and I think we have a lot of questions about these topics. So thanks. We're going to jump in the second presentation for this year's topic of relocalization or revisiting the supply chain. I'm going to call for the second speaker with François Bacalou. Welcome, François. Bienvenue, François. François is a CPO indirect for Suez Group, global, worldwide. Before taking this position, he was a CPO for Suez Water Technical System in the States. During this different position, he has been implementing these elements of reshoring and understanding how we can shorten or relocate these different suppliers and using this different supplier network and relocating this supply chain around the world. So I'm very pleased to welcome you.
First question I have for you is, within your company, what are the factors that influence the location of your suppliers?
Thank you, Hervé. So if we go back a little bit, I mean, the main driver was, of course, price. And we have to look, then we move into total cost, but let's face it, the main driver was price. Beside price, we have now a key driver, which is health and safety. We need to make sure that our people are always in a safe environment. Of course, supply risk. Are we able to deliver on time because the lead time are shortening, etc., etc.? Are we able to deliver on time? And more recently, when I say recently, in the past 10 years, we move into other stuff like environment and social. The CSR became more and more important. So if we go back, price first, and then many other elements that help us to organize the transition.
Thank you. You're in an industry, the water, sanitation, where your customers are local authorities. Is this something, that's impacting, that you take into account in your supplier selection and localization?
Of course. And this is part of the relationship we want to develop with our customer, because, of course, we deliver a service for sure, but there is more to it. I mean, how can we work with a local authority about their agenda, a much larger agenda in terms of local employment, environmental management, etc., etc. So, of course, our supplier, we need to deliver the service, but we need to think about, can we do more than that? Can we differentiate ourselves and go beyond what was, I would say, the standard of our industry?
Thank you. Could you give us examples where you've been thinking differently and where you've been rethinking in some ways your supply chain footprint and the localization of your supplier?
Yeah, I mean, the example that really, was a succession of innovation, new ideas, new way of looking at the business. Definitely, so like you said, we manage network, distribution network for clean water. And so we have a lot of components. So I will mention the meters that everybody knows, but there are a lot of connections, a lot of pipes, a lot of water equipment that, this industry has been there for more than a century. And all this material initially were iron cast, brass, any type of metal type of material. So what was done initially is that, because driven by cost reduction, etc., what we did, we kept the same design and went from France to Eastern Europe, a little bit farther east. We ended up in China and in other places with just one focus, which was cost reduction. Okay, so then happened stuff like we discussed before. Our customers were interested in terms of where do you source from, why, etc., and we tried to look at it another way. So what we did, because of course, price is a given, right? So that was not an option. So what we decided to do, it took some time, but what we decided to do was to work with local supplier in France, and we have a couple of very good examples where, again, we did redesign to cost with these people. We said, okay, this is a function, this is the target price, this is what we need to do, can we work together? And we spent time, we co-invested with a supplier in terms of redesigning a product. So from a standard, let's say, iron cast material, we move into thermoplastic stuff, composite material, and that was doing exactly the same function. So in terms of functionality, that was just about the same. We went through millions of tests, etc., etc. It was not obvious because, again, when you change materials, there are a lot of implications in this business. So what we did, we work with our supplier, and we work with our supplier, which is a supplier of raw material. And we did a lot of research, because when we talk about composite or composite material, that says a lot. What is a composite? So we need to meet the specification. We need, if we can, to reuse existing material, and that's what we did. Now we use a portion of our material come from the automotive industry, recycle material. So we work with a supplier to come up with an alternative design that, again, will do the same job at the same price. And I have to say, maybe we have even improved on that with many other things. So the risk, supply risk went away. I mean, we have suppliers now that are located pretty close to us. When we talk about environment, without saying no more transportation, and of course the material, the environmental impact of recyclable plastic versus iron cast, nothing to say about that. So, and then if we move into the CSR aspect of things, that was as well very, very important and very well appreciated by our customer, because of course we relocated a very large number of jobs in France. So not just our supplier, but like we say, all their subcontractors, supplier, because now our supplier raw material is in France or very close in Europe. So there has been, starting with one concept, we have managed to, I will say, tick all the boxes. So now we don't only tick box on pricing, we tick box on environment, on CSR, on risk, and many others.
Excellent. And I think you've got some other cases where you've been even looking at some of your raw materials, phosphates that you've been using inside the company as well, when you've been rethinking about your approach.
So the example I just given you was more looking at things from a French perspective, because that was more for the French operation. The second example I would like to share is a more global one. One of our company is supplying membranes and various chemicals for the industry. And we have operations all over the globe. Okay, so we have operation in America, we have operation in Europe, in Middle East, in Asia, in Australia, everywhere. What we did initially, again, driven by cost, we all went to China. So that means every single region were dependent on a couple, 3 or 4 suppliers, all located in the same region. So again, same thing, Chinese regulation has changed, more pressure on manufacturer. So some of them just closed down, and that was a very big impact on the chemical industry. Some closed down, etc., etc. So that prompted a different way to look at things. So this is more getting supplier base aligned with our manufacturing base. So I'm not just talking about one country now, I'm talking about having partners that can supply us in every single region. So now we went with a couple of partners who had operation or warehousing in the different regions. So before that, we were sourcing maybe 90% from China. Now we are 20% China, 20% Europe, 20% Latin America, etc., etc. So altogether, we can support our operation from many different places. And I can give you a very recent example. When the COVID started in China, as everybody knows. So our operation in China were kind of struggling to find raw material in China. So what we did, we supplied from the other region of the globe our Chinese operation. And then as COVID was evolving and being more and more present in the other region, we did the other way around. And that was then the Chinese supplier that could support us in the different region. So we said, looking at it on a holistic way, so I think reshoring makes sense when you are in one country, but just with the second example, it makes as well a lot of sense, even when you are global. We need really to think about what do we need to do with our supplier base in order to really support more strategically our operations.
Thank you. In we've heard that sometimes the reshoring is just the, the outcome from, let's say, a failed outsourcing or an offshoring that wasn't working very well. Do you have any actions that try to, somehow from the start anticipate, avoiding to have some of these offshoring, starting from the early design phase, trying to avoid this type of things to happen with new product, new infrastructure components, things like that now?
I guess a couple of examples I have given you were about decision made 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, when, of course, the way of looking at things was a bit different. Now I have to say, with this network of partners, we look at exactly what you said. We try to anticipate the future because we know, and I can go back to my example on the network components. There is more and more digitization. So we have meters with a lot of electronics in order to transfer data automatically, etc., etc. We have the same on all the equipment on the network to maintain the network, to give information about flow, etc., etc. So this is an endless story because, again, the decision we made on material, on plastic, by example, help us to be much more efficient in transmitting data, in communication, etc., etc. So back to your question, I think now we are more in a process where differentiation and technology will bring much more value to our industry than just standard cost reduction and offshoring strategies.
Right. So having going through this, this experience and having all these cases that you've been able to gain success with, what are the challenge? What are the solutions? What would be advice for your peers in 2021 who want to go in such a way?
So I always keep in mind two things. The first one is that this is not a sourcing or procurement initiative. That must be a company-wide initiative because in all what I said, of course, we went very fast, but everything starts with salespeople. They need to appreciate what is important for our customers. What do we need to do in terms of sourcing, etc., and understanding what our customer expect, of course, just beyond the standard function. So sales need to be on board. Technical, of course, technology need to be on board because we need to make sure that whatever solution, again, re-engineering takes more time from engineering than from sourcing. So it's really important that what we do now, we get engineering team and supplier together to build what we call a shared roadmap. This is where we want to go in the coming 2 years, 3 years, get these people together. So sales, engineering, and of course, I would say management, because people need to appreciate the benefit we can get from, we need to drive the change and the change start from the top. So of course, sales and technology are really instrumental, but we need as well the company to drive this change of culture. So that's one. Internally, there is a lot to do in order to communicate the benefit and make sure people understand the benefit of having sourcing close to the strategy of the company. That's one. The second one is changing the relationship with suppliers as well, because of course, we trying to create new concept, to invent new product. You don't get it right every time, right? You don't get it right first time. So you need to accept, and now we have a budget for that, where we can co-invest, I have said before, or at least trial and errors, work with supplier, try to understand and try to come up with new ideas. So the two things is we need a new way to look at things internally, and that start from the top. I insist on that. The second one, we need to have some very good partners that trust us and that we accept. And the third one will be we accept to fail, because it doesn't work, again, right first time, every single idea. I've just shared success. We have as well some initiatives that didn't work that well and that we just stopped because they didn't bring what we expected. So this will be the three things I think are important when we get into this journey.
Merci beaucoup, François. Thanks very much, François, for this very rich, deep presentation. You totally right. In the water industry, as in the energy in general, you have to reinvent yourself because the economic model are totally changing. We saw that yesterday, by the way, with Jose Luis, CEO from Nordex Acciona, explaining the new relation you have to develop in the new renewable energy. So this is a new word for you, and it was very interesting with all your examples. It was very rich. Thanks again, François. I'm now very pleased to welcome the third presenters, speakers, Dominique Lebigot, who is CEO Moet Hennessy. Another, that's a product you don't put water in, so there is a strange relation between François and Dominique, but liquid, but different liquids. So Dominique is working in Moet Hennessy, CEO. He has been working in different companies before, global companies, from FMCG to steel industry. Today, he's going to present us some specific actions he has been implementing in his company to shorten some different supply chains. And he's going to present us some very interesting examples. So, Dominique, the floor. First question, within your company, what are factors that influence the location or relocation of your suppliers?
Good morning, Bernard. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to share the Moet Hennessy experience. First, what have been the factors for us to define our supplier portfolio? First, we have a global purchasing network with buyers located everywhere in all continents, and we have operations in wineries in all continents where we are making wines and spirits globally. So we have a network of suppliers that have international footprint for some, and from some others that are locally connected with our purchasing network, but very good and strong suppliers. So our criteria and factors for defining and developing our supplier portfolio have been based on making sure that all good suppliers that we have and good partners with whom we work are working with all units. We are being qualified in all our operations worldwide. This has been the first way for us for getting our sourcing getting international. So we have been developing in the past years the international sourcing, and we have been connecting our operations worldwide to work and source overseas from the best suppliers we identify. That's the first point. Second, we keep on adjusting our purchasing strategy to the new purchasing and new business challenges. And one of them, as you know, as everybody knows, is how can we reduce our carbon footprint and how can we make our overall supply chain more agile. So for that, we initiated another program, which is taking all those suppliers that we have identified worldwide and making and giving them incentives to open operations in the regions where they are not. This would prevent them from sending materials overseas, and this would reduce the lead time and reduce the carbon footprint. And that's a program that we call global proximity.
Okay, can you say some words about global proximity, because this is the main initiative for locating your suppliers closer or relocating some of your suppliers or helping suppliers to come closer from your own locations.
Yes,
global proximity, nice words.
This is very much in line with the reshoring initiative that we are discussing today. Global proximity, in fact, it's the next maturity level that we bring to our international sourcing. It has both. It provides both benefits, having the connection with best suppliers in the world and working with the best suppliers wherever their headquarters are, and making sure that we can build proximity close to our operations. That's why we call it global proximity. Few examples. For example, we are buying a lot of packaging material and for our wine and spirits products, and we have been developing the relationship with some of our key and strategic suppliers. For instance, one labels manufacturer who is located in Italy. We have this company has opened a site in Scotland next to our whiskey Glenmorangie operation, and they are now providing and supplying our operations in Edinburgh from a local manufacturing site. We have also created a bridge, and we have developed a very good supplier for rigid boxes, what we call the rigid boxes, the coffret, if you want, a supplier located in Brazil, a very good supplier that have been working with our Brazilian subsidiary for years, and now this supplier has opened a manufacturing site in Champagne, and making sure that we can now provide rigid boxes for our projects in Champagne. We have also developed another relationship and global proximity success story. It's a supplier of wire hoods. I don't know if you know what wire hoods means. These are the smaller steel device that you have on all sparkling bottles, and if you want to open that bottle, you have to take this steel device out and then the cork out. So this is very small steel piece that we have in all our sparkling bottles. We have a very good partner with whom we work in Europe, and this partner has opened 3 manufacturing sites, one in Australia, next to our Australian operations, one in Brazil, and one in Argentina. Again, this shows some examples of suppliers that are following us in our global proximity strategy and are in agreement to open manufacturing sites close to our operations. There are, of course, very good benefits for that, and I can, if you want, I can share that with you. And the reason why this global proximity program works.
Yeah, thanks very much. I would appreciate if you can share some more elements, because it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, well, very good. If we have time, the question that we are facing, all of us, when we are talking about opening manufacturing sites next to our operations, next to our premises, is well, what's the benefit for the suppliers to do that? I mean, they are investing a lot. We don't participate with the investment. They are investing a lot, and what kind of security they can have for opening a new operation next to a customer, and what benefits they have to do that locally. For us at Moët & Cie, it's a bit different. We are manufacturing wines and spirits, and we are very much linked to what we call the appellation d'origine contrôlée, which means we have been manufacturing champagne in Champagne, and we will continue to do that in Champagne for the years to come. The same for cognac, the same for other brands that we are working on and developing worldwide. So the benefit for the suppliers when they are opening a plant, they know first that they have a good partner, a good customer, Moët & Cie, that they can rely on for the minimum of business, and we are helping them, even if we don't participate in the investment. But also it's one way for them to enter the local market, because there are other sparkling producers, sparkling wines and spirits producers locally based. So it's one way for them to enter this market and conquer new customers. So it's clearly a win-win situation. And in addition to that, the benefit for us, first, we reduce the lead time, we secure the supply chain, we make this relationship between the supplier and us more agile and in proximity. And we have been able to do, by doing that, to reduce our carbon footprint by more than 6,000 tons equivalent CO2 per year. So it has a real benefit in terms of avoiding overseas shipment. It has a real benefit in terms of reducing carbon footprint.
In this global proximity approach, what have been your criteria for selecting the suppliers in this program of global proximity? If you have some criteria.
Yeah, we you can't do that with all your suppliers. You have to make sure that you can develop a very strong relationship with some key suppliers. Basically, you have to make sure that you are part of the key customer for your suppliers. The suppliers are willing to follow us because we are a strategic customer for them. So first, our factors for selecting those suppliers is, are we acting as a key customer for them or not? And can we raise the awareness and the importance of wait and see in their customer portfolio? So that's the first thing, is to make sure that in our supplier relationship management program, we have a specific program in place where we have identified some suppliers as being partners for us. We know that those suppliers with whom we are working on global proximity initiatives are those partners, are those suppliers that are willing to develop the business with wait and see far beyond sending materials, providing services, and sending invoices. This is also very much linked to what is the strategic purchasing plan of wait and see, and our vision in the future of transforming our suppliers into contributors to business and partners with whom we can develop the revenues of the company. This is, for me, what I would say, this is one of the key evolution for the next purchasing age for purchasing, is how can us buyers, how can we become contributor to business? How can we become business acumen? We have this chance of living in a world today which is more and more connected, and tomorrow, with the Internet of Things, with all the market connected, you see the suppliers of our suppliers will be directly in contact with the customers of our customers. And this overall setup that we all have been working for the past 50 years, which says in the company you have suppliers and customers, and of course both worlds are completely disconnected, and we even have structured our organization like all other companies with a sales force and the purchasing department. The fact is, with all the market getting connected, you will see more and more interactions between supplier market and customer market. And at the end of the day, on a business standpoint, you will end up with only one external market. And business opportunities are everywhere and should not only be found in the customer markets, they should also be found in the supplier market. And that's why purchasing has a key strategic role to do in the future, because we are the best, us buyers, to know and to understand our supplier markets. And we will be asked tomorrow, all companies will be asked tomorrow the same question: what do you do as a buyer to help impacting revenues? How can you identify growth and sales opportunities on the suppliers market to help generating revenues in the company? For us at Wait and See, it means we are producing and selling bottles of wine and spirit tomorrow, and today already. We have already launched that program that we call supplier activation. Today, we are transforming our suppliers into customers, and that's okay. we are giving them the opportunity to have access to our finished products at a special discount because they are suppliers. And we also ask them to collaborate with us much beyond the transaction piece of sending products and services, but to have joint initiatives into marketing campaigns, to do marketing campaigns together, to have to exchange information about their knowledge and their market intelligence on their customer market. And this collaboration is going far beyond the traditional buyer-seller collaboration. Global proximity is part of it. It helps it relies on the capacity of a customer and a supplier to work very closely. And if you can reduce the distance, geographical distance, it helps the proximity to be raised. So it goes completely in the sense of our business acumen purchasing vision at Moitensi.
Okay, so on one hand, you say global proximity, trying to get your suppliers closer from your business as you have been doing. On the other hand, say, okay, your suppliers can also be you're supporting your sales and supporting your business, and you today you're connecting both.
Yes, absolutely.
And
it doesn't mean that buyers should become vendors. Everybody has his own job. What it means that we should, as buyers, we should leverage our supplier relationship and put our suppliers in contact with our sales force. Everybody does his own job in the organization, but at least we are making sure that the business opportunities now are 360 degrees and not only 180 degrees.
Your business is quite specific, and do you think that what you have been implementing in your business, speaking about global proximity, asking your suppliers to support your business, do you think this is also can be implemented in other sectors, in other business, in other industries?
I say yes. I think it's already the case in some companies. Some companies have already been pushing their suppliers to develop and to open manufacturing sites close to their businesses. We saw that in the past with some successes, but short-term success, because this was mainly in the car industry or the FMCG, whatever. But as long as the customer can ensure that its own operations sites are going to remain in that region, it's a long-term investment that it's worth for the supplier. For sure, everybody will have to go that route. Something new today. The world is changing. The world is changing for different reasons. We have been experiencing in the past 10 years and even more in past 5 years, a very strong awareness of everything which is environment. And on the top of that, the CO2 emission. Today, it's not absolutely the case, but tomorrow, the regulations are going to increase and more companies will be asked to reduce their carbon footprint. Not only by compensating by planting trees in different places, but effectively to have a program in place to reduce their carbon footprint. Global proximity is one very good way for companies not only to build stronger relationship with local suppliers, but also to reduce the carbon footprint. And there is no way back for that. This overall momentum has started, and there is no way back. So yes, I strongly believe that everybody will be putting a lot of emphasis in their strategic purchasing initiatives in the future for that.
Just to conclude, Dominique, any specific final advice for your peers for 2021? You have been giving a lot of advices during these interviews, discussions. Any final advices?
Thank you very much for asking a difficult question. I don't think I have any advice to give to anyone. I am personally basing my own understanding of what needs to be done based on my experience, because I had the chance for having experienced the global purchasing organization in many different industries in my career. I would maybe not really an advice, but a question mark that all CPOs should be asking itself in the future. Having suppliers relocating operations next to your premises, next to your manufacturing sites, beyond all advantages I just mentioned in this interview, it also provides sense to driving business in the future. One thing which is different today, and I'm not talking only about COVID. COVID, we all have been working and going through this COVID crisis and this pandemic crisis. We all have suffered from that, but like all crises, it provides also some opportunities for accelerating changes. We saw how far we can move our collaboration, worldwide collaboration, interaction, team interaction, but from physical meetings into virtual Zoom meetings. And you have been doing exactly the same adaptation by doing this digital event today. This has been accelerated by COVID. I think COVID also has raised awareness, political awareness globally. For the first time, for the past 30 years, for the first time in the world, all nations, the entire human population has been facing the same problem at the same time with the same solution. We have been observing in the past years some growing policies for nationalism, for some political movement that are going in the sense of refocusing on itself, putting barriers, raising import taxes, ignoring global instances like World Trade Organization and so on. All those organizations and global instances have been suffering because of lack of credibility, and this has been getting hurted in the past years. This COVID crisis has clearly reminded everyone that we can, in fact, at the end of the day, we all are facing the same issues. We all are living the same planet, and this planet is becoming very small. And it's more important that we all work together, that we raise and create unity between nations than separations between nations and protectionism. So I think this has a merit, the COVID has a merit of maybe making some barriers, some national barriers going down in the next years. And we saw that with Trump and Biden. We saw that. And I strongly believe that we will continue to see this momentum of going back to a global unity, working better in the long term. So the only question mark I will raise and I will share with the CPOs is we all should think about what's different today because of this global pandemic, because of this global technology which is connecting more and more all markets. We should stop thinking about managing suppliers, and we should start thinking about managing ecosystem. The supplier is just one piece as part of an ecosystem. And if you think that way, then you will have to think the ecosystems everywhere where you have operations. Bringing suppliers close to your operations, to your operation manufacturing units, is thinking in terms of ecosystems, in the local ecosystem. So if you keep that in mind, what our strategies should be focusing on exploring and taking advantage of all opportunities that an ecosystem can bring. It's the same that we should stop looking at the piece and starting and looking at the puzzle itself. So I think if you put ourselves in this mindset, I'm sure we'll see all benefits of these global proximity programs and all benefits of business acumen as well.
Thank you very much, Dominique. We meet us in some minutes for the panel discussion. Thanks a lot for all these wonderful insights and comments. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dominique. Dominique, CPO, Moet Hennessy, who is part of LVMH group. So thanks very much for this very interesting presentation. This wording, global proximity, I'm sure you got a lot of fans for these two words. Because it's very interesting to have been associated these two words, global and proximity, for shortening the supply chain, what you have been doing in Moet Hennessy. So thanks very much for all your explanation. Thanks very much for all your example. Thanks very much, but reminding that the world is changing, and so we're going to go for discussion. We entering in the roundtable, so I'm just going to wait for Christophe to be with me. Thanks very much, Christophe, to be with me. So Christophe Durqueroy is partner in Argon & Co. And we're going to go directly on the roundtable discussion. So Christophe, the floor is yours. A small jingle for you now. Just
hello everyone, can you hear me well? Yes. So I'm really happy and honored to facilitate today's this roundtable. Thank you again to all of you, Matteo, Dominique, and François, for sharing your views and great experiences on this strategic topic. First, perhaps to start this roundtable, Matteo, I would like you to give us an opportunity to get your reaction to François and Dominique comments. What strikes you in their views?
Oh, thank you. Well, I found the both videos that we had a chance to see that very inspiring. They gave us great insights. So it's very difficult to summarize them in just a couple of minutes. But I would say that what struck me is that they both focused not on why you should rethink and redesign your supply chain, but on how to make it well. So how to make it really work. So that's definitely was very inspiring, which is definitely what companies should focus on, not on why, but on how to do that. And I think that at least 3 points are great and very inspiring from my perspective. The first one is probably the importance to work with suppliers, with local suppliers. And so the importance of changing the relationships that you have with your suppliers. Still pressure on procurement is on price. Yeah, price is definitely a great one important KPI, but also the organizational environment is changing, and that's definitely very inspiring, I think. The second thing I found is the growing attention that both our CPOs gave us to the attention to risk management and agility. That's not too surprised if we think that we are living in the COVID era, but definitely it seems evident that what happened, the COVID effect, was probably mainly an accelerator. So something that accelerated an existing phenomenon. And I think it's something that's I find very, very, very challenging. And probably the last point I would like to draw attention to is the importance of having an holistic view. Procurement, as was designed and presented as the connector between suppliers, sales, functional units. That's really an inspiration, I think. Dominic, for example, introduced the concept of ecosystem, which I think is a powerful metaphor. And I think that is definitely an interesting perspective that should drive the changing paradigm that procurement people should put in.
Thanks, Matteo. Thanks for your view. I would like to take the opportunity of this roundtable perhaps to focus on one point you all highlighted is around the strategy execution of a reshoring approach or the supplier allocation program. You all insisted in that phase, and especially you, François, you discussed a lot around the fact how important it is to develop internally within the company relationships with other departments such as sales or engineering to implement levers such as design to cost, for instance, one of the examples you mentioned. We all know that cross-functional team is worked by company for many years because it's a very complex topic. Potentially, you can give us some example or some advice what you have experienced within Suez on that kind of cross-functional work, let's say.
Okay, so for that, and I think we need to go just beyond cross-functional activity. I guess what we're talking about now is sharing the same vision, And that's a question I will ask to Dominic, because he presented all this proximity approach from the procurement perspective. I guess my question is it as well a top management perspective? Is it a company strategy, or is it just procurement trying to push this strategy? Because to me, this is, back to your question, this is really the key. Procurement now need to spend more time internally, I will say, than externally. Because this great vision we have about supplier collaboration, supplier being part of our ecosystem, supplier really working with us as partner, need to be shared by everybody within the company. Because if it's just procurement pushing for that, we won't go very far. So I guess to me the key, and again, there is not a toolbox or something magic that's going to make things work, is really spend the time to explain to everybody, and especially top management, how critical it is to look differently at our supplier. It's not another body outside of the company that we need maybe to put pressure on to get, like Matteo said, some cost reduction. It's a real opportunity. These are people who have research and development, we have a commercial strategy, we have a lot of things, and we need to appreciate what these people could do for us, and not just on delivering product, and that has been very well presented, not just delivering product, but brainstorming with us, being part with us, how we are going to differentiate ourselves, position yourself in a different way on the market, not just thanks to what we can do internally, but thanks to the new relationship we will have with suppliers. So that's really why I want to insist, is that need to go beyond procurement. That need to be the next company strategy, is leverage. We are very good at managing human resource. We need to be as good at managing external resource. And that should be everybody's responsibility. And again, like Dominic said, we will stay in our job, no problem, but everybody in the company, when you talk about technology, about sales, about as a contribution to developing this relationship with suppliers. And this is what I think, this is a new way to look at things.
Yeah, I fully agree. If you allow, Christophe, I will build on what François just mentioned, as well as Matteo. You're absolutely right. That I think we are living at an inflection point today in the history of purchasing, and we are jumping clearly into the next generation purchasing. What I like at purchasing, and to build on what François was just saying, this cannot be only a strategy, isolated strategy by procurement. It has to be shared by the company, by the executive people. What I like in purchasing, if you push back yourself in the past 40 years, purchasing was born in the 80s. And every 10 years, this is the only function that I know. This is the only function which is reinventing itself every 10 years. Every 10 years, the job of purchasing is different. We started with focusing on prices, getting the best price in the market. Then in the 90s, I would say we focused on cost, total cost of acquisition, and quality, and delivery time. So best compromise is productivity. Then we moved into the early 2000s into not only price and cost and productivity, but also innovation. We are expecting purchasing to innovate, to come with innovations, and also in the past 10 years in sustainable initiatives. And how can we contribute to the environment and to managing the risk and ensuring compliance of all our processes and integrity in the system. Today, we are just moving into a new stage, which is another revolution, or maybe overall it's just evolution. But the next revolution is clearly we are jumping into the new dimension, which is making our suppliers becoming active and contributors to generating growth with us. Having some growth initiative with our suppliers, asking our suppliers to help us grow and then to make themselves grow as well with us. So that's business acumen. Vision for me is just another turn into the history of purchasing. But to come back on what you said, it has to be shared and to be and to have you need to have everybody on board. For that, who are we talking to? I mean, I was also building on what Matteo says in terms of mindset. You have to change the mindset of your customers, your internal customers. You have to change the mindset of your suppliers, and you have to change the mindset of the executive people, and you have to change the mindset of the buyers. The way we do that, we decided that the whole relationship with supplier has to be considered differently. We are going to change the way suppliers are working with us, and we are going, more importantly, to change the suppliers are working between themselves. I take one by one. Suppliers will have an active role in helping us building revenues, trying to open new doors and new markets and new growth opportunities with us, because they are very much in a very good position to help us on that. And they are much more, they are very much willing to do that, because suppliers are willing to expand their relationship beyond purchasing. If they can be in contact with ourselves, they are more than happy. They are enhancing their relationship with us. So they are very much open to that. It's just the common sense. So we did not have any difficulties on the supplier side to convince them that this is the next step we need to work together. We did the same also with our purchasing community, because everybody understands in the what we call the unified network of purchasing. This is a purchasing community which is full of talent. We have 120 buyers worldwide, and the average age is 31 years old, and the seniority on average is 6 years. So we have very good talents and knowledgeable people. And what we have been explaining to them, and they are very clever, so they understand. This overall new step is going to make their job more impactful, go much beyond the bottom line, but also contributing to the top line. It makes your job even more interesting, more impactful in the company. So that's also something which is common sense. And this is very easy to accept. Then comes the time you talk to the executive people, which is very important. As executive people, of course, we need to understand that they are not the most clever people in the world. Huh? So we need to have very simple explanation when we talk to them. I remember when I had this idea of asking our suppliers to become customers as well. I came to the CEO of the company and to some other presidents of our business units, what we call our maison, and I told one by one. I told them, look, you know what? This was in 2017 and 2018. I said, you know what? I think I have a stupid idea, and I would like to share it with you, and you tell me if it's really stupid or if you see some common sense behind. Can we sell bottles to our suppliers? And they all are buying bottles everywhere, so every year. So all of them said, it's obvious. We should have done that before. So why didn't we do it before? So again, each time when you move to this new generation step in purchasing, you show the common sense. This is just a logical step. And it is pretty much linked to these global technologies of connecting all markets together.
Dominique, you just highlight right now and in your speech previously in the global proximity approach that the buyer will move from managing supplier to managing ecosystem, which is quite different, and from bottom line focus to also sales contribution, even if they are not the new sellers, but they need to focus also on that. This is a huge, as you just mentioned, this is a huge challenge in terms of capabilities. Those change. Can you tell us if it changed the way that you recruit people, that you train people, that you develop your team?
Mm-hmm. Yes, very briefly. You will be surprised. You will be surprised, Christophe, how clever people can be. When you talk about common sense and when you talk about a vision, which is just a continuity of what happened in the past 40 years, the new term, you see, you just need to be clever. If your purchasing community, and that's the case today, we have been working for the past 30 years in building purchasing skills into business schools, into programs. Today, clearly, all the young students that are going out of those schools, masters of purchasing, they all are very good people. They all are clever, and they are very much open to new ideas and new changes. So I would say, in terms of profile, I would say no. You don't need to have a different profile. You have the best talents today available in the market, and for tomorrow. What needs to be done is just communication. It's just showing some new ideas and putting those ideas into practice, and learn by working, by doing it. For instance, for all our buyers and purchasing community, what we decided to do is to give them, like everybody, and including myself, in our personal objectives every year, we have to come with one supplier activation opportunity. How to generate revenues with one supplier or with another one. That's something which is very much easy for them to understand and to apply. Then we did that by practicing. I remember when I was making that presentation to another audience of CPOs, and I remember I had one question, and that's why this business acumen vision is full of, it's plenty of good sense. I had one question. Someone, he was a CPO of a large company manufacturing equipment. He said, oh, I understand your point, but it's obvious that you can do that because you are manufacturing bottles, right, and spirits. In my company, we are manufacturing equipment, industrial equipment. How can I do to transform some of my suppliers into contributors to business? And my answer was very clear. I have no idea. And I don't know. You are in your business, not. The only thing that we all can do, and that's exactly what we have been sharing also with our purchasing community, with the buyers. The only thing that you can do is just think about it. Just keep that idea in mind. That's it. And don't forget to always keep that in mind. And you will see 1 month, 2 months later, one idea will come that maybe you will not have seen it, you would not have observed it if you were not paying attention before. But one idea to transform, to utilize a supplier relationship to help our sales force. And then another one will come, another one. And you'll see everybody can have its own contribution to generate business.
Thank you. I think that, François, you have also some examples within Suez where you worked on not only bottom line, but also working on how can we impact the top line by selling with or generating revenue through suppliers. Can you give us some example around that?
Yeah, that's just about looking at things in a different way one more time. So back maybe now 10 years ago, when we launched the remote metering system, I mean, initially, you had somebody coming every year just looking at your meter, and and just that was used just to bill you, and that was it. I mean, meter was just used just for billing perspective, and that was it. So then we come up with a new technology, which was remote metering, and guess what? You go from having one information a year to having the information every 15 minutes. So you can imagine how massive the change is. Okay, so what we did, we developed this technology with one supplier. Okay, so we co-invested with the supplier to develop the technology, make sure we were, because of course, within Suez, we didn't have all the digital knowledge, etc., etc. So that was a unique opportunity to team up with new players, new people coming with a new expertise into this business. And what we did, going beyond just co-developing a product, we as well thought about what type of new service we could bring to our customers. And second, how could we combine our sales strategy? Because of course, I mean, Suez is not everywhere. These players sometimes work directly with municipalities as well, just because, I mean, some municipalities do the service themselves. So they talk to the same supplier to get the same equipment from them. And what we brainstorm with them, we said, okay, we are going to sell exclusively your product. But what you will do is that you will propose to the municipalities you work with to go beyond just a product and use Suez to supply the service that goes with the product. So just a new technology, new capabilities give you immense opportunities in terms of new business. And again, if we would have done that just by ourselves, I mean, looking for a product available on the market, none of that is available because technology is one, definitely, we needed the technology. But what was a key to me is that this new technology gave us the opportunity to look at the business in a different way. And not just in isolation, but like we said, with a network of people, because we had suppliers, but we talked as well to our customers. What type of service could we develop for you, etc., etc. And we built some pilots, and we developed a lot of new services. So again, the important point to me is don't consider supplier just as somebody delivering a technology, but look at the supplier for somebody looking at things in a different way and coming up to complement and develop your strategy much further. So that's exactly what we did. That opened up new business opportunities in terms of new customer and new services. So that's really the way we looked at it.
Excellent, Francois. Matteo, based on what we just heard, either regarding all the change management or change of mindset or regarding the topics I just highlighted, Francois, right now, do you have any remark or question for them?
Well, I would like to ask two questions, if it's possible, one for Dominic and one for Francois. Concerning the change of mentality, Dominic mentioned something which I would like to try to summarize as don't ask yourself what your supplier can do for you, ask yourself what you can do for your supplier, which I found an interesting perspective that you gave us. And I would like to know how you did that, meaning how did you change internally the mentality of the organization, moving from us versus them towards us with them, which was something that you mentioned in your...
Yeah, thank you for that question, Matteo. Christophe just a little bit earlier was mentioning the notion of ecosystem. I think, like all transformation plan, we are driving transformation in our organizations. Transformation is communication, so we need to communicate. We need to it's not enough to have the right and good ideas. You need to have it at the right time, and you need to explain it and to share it. The way we opened the mindset of everyone and asked them to think different, we invited them to think not only in terms of managing a supplier relationship, supplier by supplier, but we invited them to manage ecosystems. A supplier is just one piece of an entire puzzle, which is the ecosystem. We have been limiting ourselves so much on most of the purchasing organizations worldwide, even in the most advanced purchasing organization, we have been limiting ourselves in supplier relationship management and developing our suppliers individually, one by one. The future is, as you said, Matteo, what can we do to change and what can we bring to our suppliers? There is an opportunity which I think hasn't been very explored in the future, is what I call the supplier collaboration. Stop working with your suppliers one by one and ask your suppliers to work together. Ask your suppliers to collaborate the one with the others, to help creating solutions to your business, to help reducing your supply chain, overall supply chain, to help providing sustainable initiatives and work together to find solutions. But we are, and again, these new technologies of communication are accelerating what we call the collective intelligence. We are all so much connected then collective intelligence is by far is much more than individual intelligence. And your suppliers are today, whether we like it or not, we are not encouraging them anything different than to work with you individually. We are not exploring enough the collective intelligence of our suppliers. It doesn't mean that we should ask our suppliers, competitors to work with each other. There are some limits to that concept, but you can have different suppliers from different markets, different industries, getting connected because they are all sharing the same issue, the same problem, and working together. So that's one way. If by elevating the vision, by opening a new dimension in the supplier relationship, then it's one way to change the mindset, and people start to think, yes, maybe we should think different.
Thank you very much, Dominique. If I may try, if I would like also to ask a question to Francois. In his speech, you mentioned about smart meter, and I think that in your organization, digitalization is becoming ever more a topic. So I would like to know if it's possible for you to give us a hint to what you're doing, what you're planning to develop in using digitalization in your organization.
So when we talk about digitalization, we talk mainly about dynamic data management. That really is the way we look at it. And let me give you just a very simple example. So initially, Suez again delivering drinking water producing drinking water and delivering it. Initially, we had contract with municipalities, right? So we were dealing, our customer were the municipalities. So we have maybe 1,000 municipalities in France. So, okay, you deal with 1,000 customers, let's say. Then next step was to go to what we call subscriber, people having a meter at their place. So you jump from 1,000 to 4 million. And now with digitalization, we are talking about managing what we call the end user. When you have a group housing, you got 1 meter for maybe 100 of people, 100 of apartments, 100 of that. So we move now from 4 million to maybe 20, 30 million. So you see the amount of data that we have to manage in order to be able to deliver information, pertinent, right, dynamic information to these 10 million, 15 million of people. And that gives us unique opportunity to deliver service, not just to the municipalities, not just to the subscriber, but to the end user as well. So that's exactly how the business, and again, back to what I said earlier, technology move the opportunity or change the way you should be looking at the business. And that's exactly it. So now our challenge with digitalization is to be able to sell service, not to 1,000 customers, but to 15 million of customers. And this is really what we are talking about.
I have a question, Christophe, if you agree, for my dear fellows CPOs here. We are all having the same challenges. We need to drive changes in the organization, and we need to take the organization to the next level. I like very much the way you has been able to install and the new messages in your organization and drive those changes. This digitalization at Suez, Francois, is just great, and by far was clearly in advance of what we can see today. And the fact, Matteo, that the way you bring back your suppliers close to operations, these are risky strategies, and we expose ourselves to do things different. So I'd like to ask you, to both of you, what was the main obstacles that you have? If you would pick one obstacle, one problem that you had to face, and the way you overcome it.
So maybe I go first. So the big obstacle or change that we have to manage, to me, is top management perspective on procurement. Okay, because of course, I mean, one of you mentioned that already. procurement, even if that was 30 years ago, procurement is still seen as bringing contribution to the bottom line. Okay, cost reduction, and cost reduction. So what was to me very inspiring and insightful was the opportunity, but you have to do it over and over, over again and over again. Every time there is a new manager joining the company or you have a change in management, you need to go back, is to tell people, don't look at a supplier just as an external body that we are going to get into a power struggle and what I call margin transfer from one company to another. Look at the supplier as an opportunity to create value in the value chain. Look at the supplier as somebody who has got capabilities to do some looking at the business in a different way, bringing innovation, bringing new ideas. Because when you said you have your own new ideas, I mean, most of my ideas come from suppliers. Supplier coming to us and say, have you thought about that? Why don't you do that? Because they have much more greater perspective on the market. Okay, they talk to a lot of people as well. So really, my obstacle, my challenge is to have the CEO of the company, the top guys of the company, being with us, being on board, and drive. That's why I ask you the question, is it a procurement initiative or is it a company initiative? We need to take that. I mean, the CEO need to drive it. Of course, we will execute for him, but the CEO need to drive it. The CEO need to challenge his salespeople. Why don't you use your supplier to, like you explained? So CEO need to challenge technology. Why are you talking to supplier once you have a good idea? Talk to the supplier before you have the good idea, because the supplier will bring all these ideas. So my real challenge, and is still the case today, I haven't won this one, is really to maintain an open dialogue with top management to make sure people are driving the change we are talking about.
Yeah, I perfectly agree with François' point. It's indeed the top management is involvement and support is key. I would probably to add that the other difficulty that I see in some organization is being able to really translate what top management thinks procurement should do in what really procurement must do. So sometimes procurement is involved too late in key decisions. We've been talking, for example, about reshoring, and there are plenty of cases where having involved procurement in reshoring decision would have helped, would have solved a lot of problems before. And I think that still, as a mentality issue, is understanding that procurement people are not simply there to implement, but are there to help and support the organization in taking good decisions. And that's still, I'm not saying it's what happens in your organization, but I still think that happens in several organizations. And that is indeed another challenge that I believe should be tackled.
Thank you, Matteo. Thank you, François. Thank you, Dominique. I'm afraid it's time to close our roundtable. It was very inspiring for me, and I'm sure for other people that listen to this roundtable. Thank you so much. I don't know how we will manage to do a synthesis after this roundtable, but thank you so much. We had many other questions, but unfortunately, we are running out of time. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. That was really an outstanding roundtable discussion. Christophe, do you have any kind of already kind of a short-term reactions to what you've been hearing during that discussion?
You know, in fact, I've prepared a synthesis, but I'm not sure that it will cover at least 10% of everything that was said. So to do such a reaction or synthesis after so much comment is not an easy one. I think that was very... First, what was very positive and interesting is that whatever the industry of the background of our speakers, they all share the same vision around reshoring or supplier relocation. I think we are all agree on all the criteria that are pushing in this direction, you know, market expectations, the footprint efficiency in terms of TCO, how to access to resource and capability. So why do we need to change? I think that we all agree on that. What was very interesting for me is the discussion around the execution, how to do that. And when Francois mentioned that it's a company initiative and not a procurement initiative, when we discussed so much about the change of mindset around the fact that we need to all agree, whatever, if we are sales, engineering, marketing, on a shared roadmap, that was very, very interesting. And I think that was also a very positive message for the young buyers right now. You know, they will enter in a procurement activity with so much challenge, not only in cost optimization, but also in value creation. We are discussing about value creation for years, but I think right now all the examples that we had are very concrete and clear. So I think that's very positive, not only for the company, but for the buyers, or the new buyers also. I don't know, Hervé, if it makes sense also based on all the analysis you made for your book, The Fifth Purchasing Generation.
C'est pas 55 là.
Yes, I think that's really a good spot on, because within our fifth generation purchasing book, we've got one of the work mode which is about collaboration and alliance, and the motto for this mode is I grow, you grow, we grow. And I think that's exactly a perfect tagline for this part of the conference. Now the question is how to get there. And I think I've got a few points I'd like to share with everybody now. The first point I think that's important is there is a practical path, between conservatism, staying with doing, keeping doing what we were doing in the past, and maybe some wild dreams we've been hearing about relocalizing, we're bringing back every activity to a certain place. And that path is very interesting, because yes, we can make a change, we can create some bold moves. Social and environmental progress are not economic burdens. If we really start to think in creative way, if we keep the mind open, we will find solutions that can tick all the boxes. It's the end, it's a collective effort, it's a collective mindset, and there are many ways we can start to spark the first steps of this journey. And here, what's important is not just to have like proof of concept here and there, is really to have a beachhead strategy. So beachhead is really a military term. When you're approaching a new territory, what you need to do is to be able to find a piece of land when you can start with something, and you just go for it. You put all your resources, all your energy in making this first move happening. And from that, you can start showing around, convincing people, hey, we've been able to do it. Let's continue. Let's make some next move. Let's push things further. And I think we need more of these beachhead strategies, looking at where is it, where we can make a first move that we can use to tell the right stories around. The second element that I think is important is the power. I understand we've been looking much beyond the total cost perspective in the discussion, but this is still a very fundamental move. Whether we talk about environmental impact, whether we talk about bringing back some of the suppliers more locally, all of this will happen if we're able to build together, the right analysis in terms of cost. And I think that's really important. We do that together with people from the business. And now maybe to conclude on some of the last elements related to the top line and related to the ecosystem, I think it's fairly simple. If we've got good suppliers who can deliver on time, on cost and delivery, that's not 100%. That's only 40% of the value we can get out of them. If we look at them as a set of capabilities that we can leverage for improving performance, for bringing innovation, it adds 30% to the equation. But that's still only 70%. You only get to the 100% potential if you start to look at them as a route to market and as a route to knowledge, as true market and knowledge partner that can open new opportunities for the company and for society at large. And when you achieve this 100% potential, you also increase the satisfaction from your buyers from this 40% to this 100%, because trust and impact is so meaningful for them. That's it. That's my conclusion. Bernard, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's time now for a coffee break, for some water, so kawa, cafecito, como quieres. We're going to get some 10 minutes break. Just being on time, we'll be back at 3:55. During this time, you can stay online. You can bring questions. We'll be replying, answering you back, whether online or we already answered some of your questions. In the coming days, we'll be answering back. So just 10 minutes break for a coffee. Take care of sunshine if you are still on day. Take your coffee, water, and be back. We stay here. So if you want, you can stay online and you can discuss if we bringing some question, we're answering. Take care of yourself. Be back in 1 minute.
The supply management idea become more and more accepted. The supply management idea become more and more accepted.
Thank you to be back. I was just finishing my coffee break. Sun shining outside. It's sometimes difficult to be back working, but it's live. So thanks very much to be with us again after this fresh air, some coffee, and just some information. You have been asking us if these topics were covered on some trainings at EIPM. Yes, we're covering all these different topics and much more during our courses, during certification programs, so on and so forth. So you can go and ask questions on info, EIPM at info. So let's jump in the second topic, so which is investing in new technologies. Everybody's speaking about new technologies. Before COVID crisis, new technology have been already investigated by purchasing and supply chain, such as technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, big data. This is not new. We have been working on how these technologies can help purchasing procurement. COVID crisis has just been an accelerator of the importance of these technologies into purchasing tools, into roles, purchasing roles, into process, the organization. The main point, in fact, is which technology are we investing on? Why? What purchasing organizations are expecting from this new technology? What will be the role of purchasing professionals? And all these ideas, which were already starting before the crisis, has been accelerating during the crisis. For this second topic, I'm very pleased to welcome as the first speaker, Edilson Bernabes. Ed is from Brazil, so bon dia, Edilson. He's professor of supply chain at West Virginia University in the States. He published a book called Digital Supply Chain Network. EIPM started working with school, with the university, and with Ed on IoT, Internet of Things, some time ago, and we go on working. So, Edilson, the floor is.
Welcome, really happy to have you with us today. You recently published a book on digital supply network. So what is the difference between yesterday supply network and tomorrow digital supply network?
Well, that is a fantastic question to get us started. So we can think about the traditional supply network in terms of the score model. I think the score model is very familiar to a lot of people in the field. So we have this buy, make, and move. So the model captures the idea of the traditional supply chain, which would be this sequential, linear flow of information and decisions and activities. As we move to a digital supply network, the mindset is very different. So the mindset starts being one of collaboration. of a real-time integration. So a digital supply network really is a set of interconnected capabilities enabled digitally to allow us to do things very differently than what we have been used to do before. So it's a movement from this more linear mindset to a mindset where everything is interconnected. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very clear. Thanks a lot. Could you provide us some example of what companies are doing in terms of implementing these digital supply network?
Yeah, I can provide a couple of them. So the first one is one that I like very much because it combines a lot of these technologies. And for me and for I think digital transformation is really about leveraging these technologies to do things very different. And I like this example a lot because of that. So there was a proof of concept a few months back where an aircraft took off from New Zealand, and midair, they identified a problem on a first class seat. So that is very costly to bring an aircraft back with that seat empty. So the crew communicated that problem to the ground on the way to LAX in the US. In the ground, the crew contacted a supplier in Singapore. This supplier moved or sent the digital inventory to California, arriving there to another supplier that used 3D printing to print that part. So when the aircraft landed in the LAX, the part was already there, ready to put in the aircraft, and without any additional time, the aircraft had the problem fixed and came back with the seat available. So it's a combination of cloud with blockchain, with 3D printing, and so some of these new disruptive technologies, and show us that we can do things very differently. So we're talking about digital inventory. It's just a global supply chain. We have a carrier in one country, a supplier in a very different country. The 3D printing happening in yet a different country. So I think this is a nice example. Now there are other examples. Alibaba, for instance, they have this Sanxi factory, which has they have digitized completely, and they leverage the AI to help small and medium-sized companies to predict what they're going to need in the fashion industry, garment and fashion industry, which is a very complex supply chain, and you typically have to make decisions 6, sometimes 7 months ahead of time. And they have shrunk that, allowing small and medium-sized companies to make these decisions in a much shorter span of time. And the factory is completely flexible because of the digital. So it's a combination of a digital factory with this AI-powered analytics that allows the Sanxi factory to help their customers to forecast more precisely what will be needed, and allows also the typically small and medium-sized companies. They have some contact, very close contact with their customers. So it allows that information to be brought into the mix to help them make decisions. So there are many other examples. So I'll keep it these two, but you can go on.
Okay, no, that's really interesting. Thanks a lot for that. I think, the first one is very much about the, let's say, the after sales, when the plane is already operating. The other one was very much about manufacturing and how you bring the consumer data to some factories. Do you have any examples? Maybe it could be useful to look at some of the design activities.
Well, there are a couple of them, and there is one particularly that I like because it's an area that is of great interest to myself, and I have some background in that area. So it's something happening here in the US with the US Air Force, actually. But it started with a partnership between Boeing and Saab when they developed this project, the T-7 Red Hawk, which is a trainer jet for the Air Force. And this aircraft was fully, the development was fully digitized. So they used the digital threading. In other words, the designers, they created a digital twin. It's a very strong, very used term in digital transformation. So they use the digital twin for the jet. And what happened is it allows you to have all these different parts and components being developed simultaneously. And if you make one change in one system, so it's basically an ecosystem of partners developing this aircraft, right? So you have the major partners, but you have other suppliers in the mix as well. So as you make changes in one part of the system, an AI-based resolution helps you make sure that that change is compatible with the rest of the system. And it allows you to develop the aircraft much faster at a much more cost-effective, it's a much more cost-effective strategy. And it allows you also to, so when you buy, the other interesting thing is that the government, mainly the military, they typically have to fly the platform before they commit to purchase a unit. And in this case, you were able to actually see everything about the platform before the first unit for the test platform was built. So it's, again, another, I think, good example of these transformations that are going on, and entirely based on this digital thread. Again, the digital thread allows all these different partners in the ecosystem to interact, participate real time, and have whatever one does, the others can, the system helps to make sure that the others are, there is compatibility between all the ecosystem with what the partners in the ecosystem are doing. So I think I enjoy this example a lot. There are other examples. I think BMW, it's not necessarily one of development, but they created this venture platform where they bring in different partners to help them to innovate, which is something similar to what the Air Force is doing, or the other way around. And it's based on this internal platform where all these different units across the globe can see and can participate and bring in innovation. So those are two examples that come to mind. We have more, as I said, we have several very interesting things happening in this arena.
So that's really interesting, because we tend to see the world as this chain of events and flows between one company to another. But what you describe here is below the supply chain, there's a data or a digital infrastructure that's going to be evolving in real time. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So there is a whole digital stack under the surface. And on the bottom line is really data is powering the whole thing. So we talk about digital transformation, and one of the important takeaways of this is that we're not talking about just implementing or deploying technology, but we're leveraging the technology to do things differently. And the way that we leverage this technology is really to think about how we can leverage the data that the technology affords us, the visibility that these technologies allow us. So yeah, so there's a whole digital stack under the hood or under the surface, and they have to we have to coordinate them very, very, very carefully. And also this allows us to have this ecosystem of partners coming together, and there will be different ecosystems interacting, and the digital stack is extremely important, how we reconcile, how we assemble them, and the capabilities, of course, that we have to focus on to bring all these different partners in the ecosystem together.
And, you know, we've gone through this epidemic, COVID-19. How is this impacting these evolutions?
Oh, it has accelerated. So we have, there have been a lot of trends already happening in terms of global supply chain, in terms of digitization. A lot of companies, the leaders in different segments, they were already digitizing. But the focus was a little more on the efficiency, on optimization. after the pandemic or during the pandemic, we came across the reality that, well, you know what, is not just about technology, it's really about data, and it's not about efficiency. We really have to have visibility. We have to have the ability to see what is happening. So we saw a lot of companies struggling because they did not know what was happening in different units, or they did not know which supplier had been affected and how, and so on and so forth. So there was this lack of visibility. And so essentially the pandemic has brought those issues to the forefront and has accelerated digital transformation. So I think we will have companies have been investing more, even during the pandemic, with a lot of uncertainty, and the focus has changed slightly towards this more visibility rather than just efficiency.
Thank you. Any final advice you would give to, you know, procurement professionals in order to prepare for this future?
Well, the first thing is really to be aware of all these different technologies, their capabilities, their limitations, because it's happening. It doesn't. We don't. There is no way back. We have to understand how these technologies will affect us, and then leverage them. You start, thinking about how these technologies can help us, help our companies, help our functions work differently, work better. What kind of value can these technologies bring to our companies? And again, it's not about employing technology. It's about leveraging them to create value.
Thank you very much, Ed Nilsson. Muito obrigado, Ed. Very interesting, very good example, very practical. Just again, showing that a professor can also speak about the reality. So thanks very much, Ed, for this wonderful example. I'm very pleased now to welcome the next speaker, Claes. Claes Lafont de Riverol is VP Indirect in Schneider. Bonjour, Claes. Claes is working today in Schneider. He has been working before in different global companies. What's quite interesting with Claes, he's always been working with company where the digital aspects, the technology aspects was very, very important. So he knows a lot about this information. So Claes, I'm very pleased to welcome you. The floor is
Thank you very much for being here today for this interview, Claes. My first question is within Schneider Electric, what is the contribution of procurement to the digital business transformation?
Thank you for the question, Hervé. Before I answer that question, let me give a little bit of background on Schneider business model. I think that's important to realize that we've moved from a really product-based business model to more of a service-based business model. So today, Schneider Electric is leveraging its park and its assets of products that have been sold over the year by connecting them, so by creating connected product, and this product being a low voltage breaker, drive and actuator, or sensor that are at your customer facility. So connecting them to the world, like the infamous IoT, Internet of Things, and using either the network of the customer, so the his own network, what we call the edge control, or the cloud, to start collecting data from these tools and using this data to bring some value to our customer. And these values might be a better usage of electric consumption, as an example, or chipping in the preventive maintenance of some of the equipment, and also potentially making a little bit of recommendation how to become more sustainable, etc., etc. So that business model really evolved into a business that was product focused to more of a service and potentially consultancy business model using our install base. So when you look at this dynamic, you really need to start thinking how I'm going to collect this data, so through the cloud, how I'm going to make sure that I'm building the right application that are relevant to my customer to help him controlling his consumption of energy, or to become more sustainable, and or to establish a program of preventive maintenance, and how I'm going to be able to provide all of this in a very secure environment. We've heard very lately a lot of case hospital or administration around the world that are being cyber attacked. So that is not acceptable for our customer. So the role of a procurement, on top of building products and providing the material and or the service, is becoming much more integrated within the business by working with the business and or customer solution people to provide the right infrastructure. So setting up the right contract framework with our cloud provider, setting up the right, identifying and setting up the right contract with potential startup that can help us develop any apps that we will use, or even working with the big names of information technology to jointly define a solution that we will provide to our customers. So changing from a supply chain world to really a business driven approach, where we do interact with some products or some services or some cloud and technology that will be used in the solution that we are providing to our final customer.
Thank you. You mentioned cyber attack. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more and provide a concrete example of what you've been doing from a cybersecurity point of view.
Yeah, so that's we've tailored completely the approach that we are taking on cybersecurity. We do not have a one-size-fits-all, and we are not covering all of our suppliers. But we've identified a list of 5,000 suppliers that we've classified around 4 main criteria. So critical supplier and high-risk supplier. And we have roughly 200 suppliers that are in these categories. And we'll come back on what that means for how we work with them. And then we have the next category is moderate suppliers, moderate risk suppliers. So here we are roughly 800 suppliers, and the remaining suppliers, 4,000, are low risk. But as I said earlier, because we do interact with customer now through our supplier or through our product, we are taking an approach that removes completely any risk. So for the critical and the high-risk supplier, we are in a scenario, we are monitoring them real time. We have few partners, a few products that are helping us to do that, and we are really engaged with them. With the highly critical supplier, which are less than 100 suppliers, we are even having some scenario planning with them, and using our security operations center, having some drills where we are trying penetration and making sure that they are reacting appropriately. Of course, we are not doing that with all our suppliers. We are really using the segmentation that we've created to take a tailored and bespoke approach with each and every of them. But the clear message here is that's not something that we can take lightly. We need to segment the supplier base. We need to have a very strong engagement with the critical suppliers. And we need to rely also on certification that are existing with a company like EcoVadis launched really lately scoring on cybersecurity, and making sure that we are addressing each and every suppliers, the one that you've identified, on cybersecurity.
Thanks a lot. We hear more and more people telling that COVID is going to accelerate digitalization, and this is going to push companies to access more technology from outside. What's your view on this, and how is this impacting Schneider Electric?
So use of technology, absolutely. I think we've learned in one day that we could not travel anymore. We could not even go to the office anymore. So we really had to instantaneously almost use tools that we were not used to use, if I may say so, in the past. So if you start looking at how it impacted us and how we play a role, we had to very rapidly become an agile and very responsive organization to support not only the business on the interaction with the customer, but also the way we were interacting with our supplier. I'll take a few examples on some of the product that we are offering to our customer, but also that we are using with our supplier. As simple as when you need to audit or when you need to repair a tool that is in your factory or at the customer location, we introduce virtual tours of factory and/or virtual glasses that enable our technician to stay at this station and to start using the person that is at the supplier and/or the customer location using these glasses and guide them through how to do proper maintenance and so on and so forth. I'd like to emphasize also the importance of e-collaboration with the suppliers. We used to be very email-driven or visit-driven and so on and so forth. And from overnight, we really had to change the way we were working with our suppliers. So the supplier relationship management transformed almost overnight. We had to use tools like Zoom, Teams, you name it, to interact with our supplier. But more importantly, we had to digitize a lot of activity that we take it for granted in the past, like invoices management, like collaborations, messages, virtual audit, and using all the tools that we are provided by supplier relationship management software or systems today to overnight use these devices and under these processes compared to what we used to do. And in that sense, that's accelerating the digitization of the supplier relationship management more than anything else. And of course, that's also increasing the use of cloud solution. And to come back on the previous point, the absolute need for cyber secured solution. That is too many cases today we are hearing again on the TVs or radios of cyber attack, and we just cannot afford that. So overall, it changed the pace. I haven't seen any introduction of things like new blockchains, but that's really helped us accelerating some of the program that we had in the past.
Thank you. I think what's really interesting about Schneider Electric is you've got these collaboration that are going from the startups that are bringing some of this technology to the internet giant who are also both your supplier, partner, and client. So maybe any final advice, success factor you would like to share with the procurement community to succeed in this diverse and extended world?
I think the key, the real key is stop being a procurement organization and be a business partner and speak business, understand the long-term needs of your customer, the customer of the company, and consequently of your stakeholder or colleagues within the organization, and start thinking about how you're going to support them by finding the right startup or by negotiating the right deal. An interesting fact is we have suppliers that are customer of us. The big data center that we are using for cloud solution, they are also big customer of us. So that's also giving more importance on the way you are managing your supplier relationship, because they are not only a supplier, they are big customer for us, which re-emphasizes the fact that you need to have a business mindset and you really need to understand the technology, the solution that your company is selling to your customer, because these customers are also your suppliers. So the dynamic of the procurement framework is changing, and you have taking a much more business approach than the way you used to operate in the past. Product, service, customer. So that's really changing the way we are operating internally, but also externally with our key suppliers, which are also our key customers.
Merci beaucoup, Clyde. Thanks very much, Clyde, for this very interesting presentation. In fact, you brought us back to the what we could call a new reality, this virtual reality. These all the tools, devices you explained, presented, it's really bringing us in the new reality we're living, visiting suppliers, audits, and so on and so forth. So thanks to the devices, thanks to the tools, thanks to technologies, we can maintain our reality. So this is very interesting and very, very, very important. So thank you very much, Claes. Let's go now to the third speaker. Our first speaker, I'm very pleased to welcome Marco. Habla, vam, Marco. So I'm just going to entrado va, Marco. So just Marco is from Slovenia. Everybody is impressed here. Marco is from Slovenia. He's the executive purchasing director in Adria. Before being in Adria, he has been working a lot in automotive industry for several years. Marco is implementing a lot of new ideas in his business, implementing a lot of new technologies, and he's going to explain us how he has been doing. Marco, the floor is yours. Thanks very much. Je suis pas sûr qu'ils aient compris ce que j'ai dit, mais enfin, j'aurais fait l'effort de le dire.
In this session to look at the role of procurement in getting access to new technology innovation. And I know you've got some interesting example to share in this field. Could you let us know what this is about?
Well, we were discussing for a long time now inside the company about the possible introduction of digital functionalities to our products. We all know it's an absolutely important feature of nowadays products. And we were wondering how to bring this so-called digital functionality the best way for our customers to our products. This is how we started to analyze all the field of digital and trying to figure out what could be the right products, the right development orientations, what are the functionalities, what are the capabilities, which would really bring added value to our consumer. This is how all it started about.
Okay, thank you. And why is procurement playing a key role in this project in your company? What's your unique contribution from a procurement standpoint?
Well, it is a very complex and comprehensive topic. In fact, in the very beginning, and it's now some, I must think a little bit, some 8 years ago, when we embarked on the journey, we first started to, as I mentioned, to analyze what might be the features, what are the product values, who can be the outside partners bringing us the right knowledge, the right inputs. So we started by screening the market, what exists, what does not exist, what could be helpful, what who are the partners, who has the knowledge about, who can bring us the added value. We, in parallel, started the research project internally, and we involved some outside institutions, and we went into the broader screening with the potential outside institution. We worked on the kind of prototype mock-up like 7 years ago. And with this, we are starting to build our internal insight into the product, into the field, our internal awareness, our internal knowledge, and all the time it was with outside partners. And all the time we were also testing different suppliers who had, I would say, on the shelf, in the offer, or in the potential developments, the various partial solutions which were covering partially what we are looking for. And all this went in big part also through purchasing, steering the relationship with potential outside partners, learning about their capabilities, learning about their strategies, what are their development plans, what are their knowledge, technical, product capabilities, competencies, are they also fitting in terms, I would say, of customer-supplier or partnership relationship with Adria. All this we were screening, and all this is a job of purchasing. Nobody else can really do it in the most comprehensive way. But on the other hand, it meant also that we had to liaise very narrowly with our technical departments, with our product management department, with our sales, with general management, as well as it is a pure novelty, and this digital is also the untraditional sectors who usually are not involved in the supplier or new product development categories like IT. They were brought in, and they have brought in their part of expertise, their part of judgment, helping to establish the right evaluation of costs, the right evaluation of what are the right knowledges, right capabilities, what is trivial, what is complex, what is new, what is existing, what is on the shelf. So all these things had to be learned through the past. Then we embarked with one supplier solution, which proved not to be very successful. And in parallel, we were maturing the prototype, the maquette we had built 7 years ago together with one institute here in Slovenia. And the team who was working on this vehicle, on the product, on the vehicle, we slowly learned the team, their knowledge, their capabilities. It was a team of researchers from various departments of this technical institute here in Slovenia. And these departments are, in fact, on the top level knowledge, I would say internationally, if not globally. It's on the artificial intelligence, it's on the digital competencies, remote technologies, and all this. And we learned more and more about them. And some 4 years ago, we started to discuss with them, would it be possible to generate together really a commercially viable project. We were with them participating in 2 or 3 European community sponsored projects. And through all this, we built the right knowledge of each other, the right trust of each other. And at one moment in time, we clearly set up the whole framework, and we built the relationship with them. They formalized a spin-off company at the institute, and we embarked in the contractual relationship with this spin-off company. And this is, yeah, all these were all the time managed among different departments internally in the company. And it was all the time thoroughly monitored with purchasing or through purchasing, what can be the relationship.
So thanks a lot. That's really very interesting cases. Maybe to summarize, why do you think it was so essential to not just work with an established supplier, but to go to such a spin-off from a university? What were the true benefit that you got out of this?
The true benefits is that we formed the judgment internally that we would like to have the key influence on all the software and hardware technologies which are involved in the project, that we have to master them internally. That was the main, I would say, the reflection behind. And when you go to, if I say so-called traditional supplier, it was more a bargaining situation. It's a bit more complex, and then some suppliers are strong in hardware, but they're not as strong in software. Suppliers who were approaching maybe haven't shared completely the same vision we have, and then is the question of also data which are generated through this type of products. Who is the owner of the data? Who exploits the data or potentially exploits the data? What can you do with that? And everybody is in a way having a genuine interest in future how to take control of the data. And the question is who generates them, how we share that. And it was pretty difficult to figure out or to define with a traditional approach, supplier customer approach, to really define proper setup. And also the knowledge, the combination of low knowledge which existed is not something which easily exists within an organization. It's the same for our organization. We do not have all the necessary internal, or we haven't had the necessary internal capabilities and knowledge. So you have to take recourse to somebody who is non-traditional, who is completely out of our usual scope of supplier market in our industry. We had to go outside our traditional ways. That was simply, I would say, for type of product and solution we are looking to, a must.
Very interesting. So really show how this is allowing you to, retain both technical and some commercial control, but working with, a very unfamiliar and traditional type of a player. Certainly, this required to manage the relationship with great care. So how did you make sure you were progressing with them on the right agenda?
What I already explained, we took quite some years to learn mutually about each other, to learn the knowledge, to develop the understanding, to build a decent level of trust, to be persuaded in the competencies this company, this supplier is bearing with them. And after that, in a way, it was very traditional project management indeed. So it's traditional project management approach after that. They were able to build really detailed master plan and time frame and project plan, properly addressing all the aspects. We have put all that in the contractual relationship, and we shaped the contracts the way it suits this new environment, not just typical supply contract. After that, it was a regular project work and regular milestone tracking. And this milestone tracking, it was done on the project level with the supervision of the project, and different executive directors from our company were involved in the milestone meetings. And then it was thoroughly followed also in our internal general company gate meetings, which we do run every year regularly. So it was, in fact, tightly controlled, tightly monitored from all levels.
Well, thanks a lot. Maybe as a conclusion, we're saying these days that we'll see some acceleration of digital project in the post-COVID period. What did you learn out of such a project, and what would you share with peers in terms of recommendation?
Well, first thing we really learned, you need to know what you're looking for. So you need to take proper time to define what are unmet needs of your customers, and also what are the potentials in technology across industries, not only in your industry, or maybe in a scientific field, in a research field, to figure out how to build then the right product. This is probably the first step. Second is do the necessary screening, and again, go broad enough to find proper partners, to identify where the competencies lie, and you have to be prepared to left behind your traditional frameworks, your traditional criteria, to be able to embark with probably some different type of partners, suppliers. And then you have to develop proper internal alignment with all the stakeholders. It is necessary to develop this alignment to do enough of, I would say, product testing, prototype or maquette testing, in order to prove that the concepts you're embarking for are the ones which will really meet the market needs. Because at the end of the day, what we are doing is we are developing product to sell to the customers and to make the margin on them. We are not developing for the pleasure of having a research project. But at the end of the day is the margin and is the profitability of the supplier and profitability of our company. It's all the time the same story. And then what was also very key is we had extensive testing and discussion also with the markets through our sales and product management to really steer the proper content of the product, which at the end proves to be a winning field. And we are right now stepping up the use of the product we have developed with this startup company. So volumes are in front of us, and we are pretty sure that also the margins we have been looking for are also.
Voilà, Marco. Thanks very much, Marco, for this very interesting presentation. Interesting for different points. The first point, I was very pleased, honored to see you here because you are one of the MB alumni of EIPM. So this is the first point. The second point is you explain us how to transform some ideas from universities in reality. So interesting to create suppliers, to create a startup with people coming from the university and asking them to be entrepreneur. So there's just one step for in between the entrepreneur and the student. So thanks very much, Marco. I'm very pleased now to go on the last roundtable discussion. We am going to welcome Hervé Legendre, director of the Research Institute at EIPM. He's also director of value creation of the battery.
We are going to have Hervé now. So welcome, Hervé. It's yours. Okay, Hervé, you can go now.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Bernard, for the transition. Really happy to be here facilitating this roundtable. There's so many things we're going to be have the opportunity to be talking about. I would like the first question to go to Head, and very simple. I'd like him to react to what Clydes and Marco have been saying, and also maybe to ask them some question if there's anything you'd be interested to hear from them.
Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's a great opportunity to be among these visionary industry leaders. And I have a question that is, I'll address this question to Clydes. So Clydes mentioned that you advanced this insight that the role of procurement is becoming more integrated inside the business. Marco also commented on the need for a framework about a different framework about relating and engaging suppliers. So my question for Clydes is, how does this impact the training and the skills of procurement officers? And a second part to that question is, how these initiatives induce change in the nature of the organization itself?
Clydes, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm struggling with technology. So for a technology and innovation workshop, quite interesting. Can you hear me okay?
Very good. Excellent.
Oh, sorry, listen, I was playing with different devices. So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so you talked about during your talk, you mentioned, you proposed this insight that procurement is becoming more integrated inside the organization. So my question for you would be, how these initiatives, actually, it's a two-part question. So the first part is, how does that impact the training and skills required from procurement officers? And then the second part is, how these initiatives are they impact or induce changes in the organization itself?
So very good questions. When we are looking at the type of profile that we need going forward, it's really changing the dynamic procurement individual. We are looking now at, if I was to take an example, we have firmware, we have software that are embedded into the product that we are selling to our customer. And that's something we need to sell as well. So there are twofold. First, the legal requirements are quite different from the normal one that you will have. And then there is also all the commercial aspects that are very different. So you really need to spend time teaching the teams, learning from experience, but also giving new skills when it comes to the legality, what I will call the legality of these new contracts that you need to do, as well as understanding the potential impact on the company and specifically the impact if we do things.
Oh, I think we've just lost you. Oh, you're back.
I think
number of license and how do you manage the issues on the field, so that a brand new skill set that we need to provide to employees. The other part that is very interesting from an organization standpoint, you need now to be, because you need to respond to customer demand in a very dynamic market, and you need to really work closely with your customers. So you need to put a structure that, rather being, I don't like the back office term for procurement and sourcing, but you need to be more on the front office side now with your teams, understanding what. Sorry, guys. What we will need from the customer side. I'm going to change side. So over to you. I'm going to change position.
Thank you, Clyde.
Thank you. Maybe I can go to Marco with a question. Both of you in your videos, you've been insisting on spanning the wings of procurement from a client to startups and familiar partner within a wider ecosystem. So Marco, do we need dedicated people for such jobs, or should it be everybody's responsibility to make that happen?
Well, for this, it's a quite complex question. On one hand, you need to screen as broad as you can. On the other hand, you need the proper competencies. So we, in fact, need to have in our team the right people who are able, first of all, to identify the opportunities, to understand them in the broader business level, to be able to liaise properly with product and sales people, and then to work with supplier and to transform and to formulate the proper product, the proper projects. Yes, I think there are quite specific competencies which are needed and which are far from, I would say, traditional competencies we are heralding or cultivating in purchasing. So it goes much broader.
Okay. So very interesting point of view in terms of the need to have some people capable of doing some specific activities and having some specific capabilities to answer to some of these challenges. Maybe Clyde, if you would be willing to take the same question in terms of do you need dedicated people to work with startups and these internet giants, or is it everybody's role to be able to interact with such companies?
So we are creating new teams and new competencies. You don't act with a startup the same way you will act with a traditional suppliers. They are part of risk. You need to analyze. You need the contracting side as well. So you need a certain set of skill sets that you have to provide, and that's training, but that's also dedicated team. And same way I was mentioning the interface with the customer, you need also to create a different dynamic that really call for this creation of dedicated team to support the business and also the challenges that you are finding with your suppliers.
Thank you. I think, Clyde, you had a question for Marco.
I think, yes, correct. And the dynamic that Marco explained and the end-to-end process, I'll be curious to see how do you, for all the opportunity and the innovation that you bring to your end customer, how do you close the loop and ensure that the feedback from your customer to your supplier is happening to see if it's delivering the value that you were anticipating?
Well, we run very formalized what we call end-to-end project in the process in the company with the innovation clock and the innovation workstream in the very beginning. And through that, we are collecting the insights from the market, from our customer market, very broad insights, and also across different markets to identify the right ideas, the right potentials, and then through a stage gate process, we are maturing the ideas. We do run yearly what we call the innovation clock steering committees in order to evaluate different proposals gathered and to do the formalized selection process with that, and then with all kinds of marketing, building maquettes, building prototypes, we are testing and liaising very closely through our product marketing department with our markets, and then with that we try to validate the definitions, the proposals, to fine-tune them, and the utmost or the final judgment really is when you are with the product in the market. But we ensure that before going to engineer the complete product, that we have the right feedback already and the right validation from the market that they are interested in the product or service and keen to push together with us to bring it to the market.
Thank you, Marco. Maybe now I can go to you, Ed. In a world of functional silos, while you need to look broad in terms of ecosystem, you've been giving some examples. So how can companies can start to build a vision for a digital future where they can really take into account all of these opportunities?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I think I'll give a more broader answer. And the reason for that is that we have been participating in some meetings with some global companies with very talented folks working on these projects, and we kind of have seen a little pattern. So I would say that it's simple. I think deceptively simple. So start identifying the value opportunity or the value proposition. This, I think it sounds so straightforward, but we see repeatedly the absence of this aspect in some projects out there. So what is the desired business outcome? And then the task here is really to identify the right problem to solve or the right opportunity to pursue. And this can be quite challenging. And I would venture to say it might be the most challenging task, actually, the first and most challenging task. And the idea here is really think big. I think there is a lot of shortcomings there on not thinking big. So think big, create really a vision for the future, a digital vision. And but then start small, because you can't really, you have to have this where do we want to be, but you have to start small and have those quick winnings to advance, similar to any transformation process, right? So think big, have this digital vision, and but you start small, and develop a digital culture. So you mentioned the word silos, right? So in a digital culture, you break the silos. You really connect everybody through data, so everybody has the same version of the truth. You create performance measures based on this data and based on the big picture, and not functionally oriented performance measures. And the idea here is really to have an organization that thinks without boundaries. So I've seen this term, think boundaryless. So everybody's connected to the data, everybody's evaluated through the same data, everybody has the same version of the truth. And then finally, really prepare the workforce, communicate and prepare the workforce. So there's a lot of new technologies, working with the data, working with real-time data. It requires a different type of mindset. This digital thinking requires a different type of mindset. So really prepare the workforce. And again, it really starts with that. What is the problem that we want to solve? What is the opportunity? What is our vision? And this vision, be ambitious on this vision, but then break it down to a small, start small, and then go from there. So these are, as I said, I thought that I would give a broader view, because I have seen a lot of projects with really good people, very talented people working and doing amazing things, but I thought that aspect sometimes, as simplistic it might sound, it gets overlooked.
Thank you. Do you have another question to one of our guests today as well?
That was for me.
Yes, yes.
Oh yeah. So Marco was doing, so both of them are doing some really, they're doing amazing work out there, right? So they're advancing very interesting insights, and so I'll come back to Marco. That was the last one to be talking. So he mentioned you commented on the need for internal alignment. So how do we achieve such alignment? What is your experience, and what would you like to share with us on that journey?
Yes, it's absolutely for type of project. I described the internal alignment from the general management to all the stakeholders is absolutely essential. How we build it in Adria, we run this end-to-end process, which is, I would say, standard stage gate process, which is involving proper monitoring on project level and then proper monitoring on general management level. And then through the project work, we involved all the necessary business function. As I explained, it goes from product marketing, sales, engineering. We eventually involved also IT, which you would not usually take into the consideration in the product development, but in such type of product, they are the ones who have their proper knowledge, proper competences to help us do proper judgment. So it goes through a lot of discussions, good business case building, structuring the business case, and then defending what are the pros and cons, and what is the value added for the customer, and what is the value added for the company and for the supplier. That's yeah. This is how we went through.
Thank you. Hervé, back to you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, excellent. The maybe I would, we're going to get to a point where we're going to go through some of the very last questions that we're going to be asking our guest today. So I want to get a little bit personal, and I'll ask the same question to both of you, Clyde and Marco. So Clyde, maybe first, what has been some of the most rewarding, personally rewarding moment in this innovation journey that you've been going on from a procurement? And maybe you can share some anecdotes where you've been thinking, I really love that job.
So I'll start with the first question, Hervé. And one of the we have our tagline at Schneider is "Life is on," and I think one of the rewarding moments, unfortunately, that was during exceptional circumstances last year during the COVID crisis, where you can realize that the work you've been doing, so securing connectivity, putting the software, is enabling all sorts of critical industry, not directly to you, but all sorts of critical industries to continue working, being hospital, being data center. And it was really instrumental during the crisis. And of course, that's a big teamwork. We are just a small part, but we are an essential part of that journey and of that ecosystem. So that's where you see that this is rewarding. And what we are doing on procurement, even though it's a little bit back offices, if we want to say so, has an impact and matters. So, and that's kind of joining what you said. I love that job, is seeing the impact that you are having by working in the background and by having really that capability to enable the company to operate even in terms of crisis. You see, okay, I'm going to work today, and I know that what I'm going to do is going to have a massive impact, not only for my company, for the society, and for our sustainable agenda.
Oh, thanks a lot. Marco, same question. What has been some of the most rewarding moment for you in this innovation journey? And, share one anecdote about, I love my job.
Well, I will start with the second one. What I really like in the job I do is very broad, and the product we are doing, developing and producing is the product for final consumer. And it is always something which is bringing a broad pleasure when the final consumer has a satisfaction with our product, which we simply can measure through the sales we do. And the actual pandemic situation is simply rocketing, exploding our market. And as I explained to my colleagues, we are turning out an extremely high RPMs at the moment, which is a pleasure in itself. And for the product, I'm talking, it's part of this final offering. And the very first moment of pleasure was when we formally signed the contract with the startup. And I said, yeah, we got it through. And we were at the very beginning to really be able to develop the product, bringing in time on the market, etc. And the second really moment of pleasure were the first units sold to final consumers. And we had one consumer, and it is a nice anecdote, who wanted to create in his caravan the real home office with all the internet approach, VPN, and so on. So with this product we developed, he was able, together with the help of the guys from the startup, to really had this office in his caravan. And we said, wow, we are well on track. This is the orientation is right. And the final one moment of satisfaction is just right now when we are bringing the product to the broader range of our products. And it simply proves that we were right many years ago, that we did many things right.
Thank you, Marco.
It's a pleasure when you see that together with stakeholders from all other business fields, not being in a silos, but really working together, we have something which works in the product. That makes you pushing hard for the next step.
Thank you. So, maybe a good lesson for us. Next year, we're going to be running that same conference from a caravan in the middle of the countryside.
Fantastic, Hervé. I like it.
By Schneider Electric.
And the technology, Marco, you will have your own VPN, will work better than in my house.
Good, good.
Fantastic. Thanks to the three of you. It's been so great to have, for the rest of the conference, some of my procurement heroes with me today. It's really been a pleasure to have the three of you with me for this roundtable. Thanks again.
Thank you,
guys. It's a pleasure.
So I would like to ask Aldric Vignon to join me now, because it's going to be time for our synthesis. So, I'd like to hear your reactions after all these exchanges we've just got.
Thank you, Hervé, for giving me the mic back. It has been a wonderful journey from the first roundtable we concluded yesterday and this final one. So I'm pleased to have the opportunity to bring you some of my insight on investing in new technology. You've just led a wonderful conversation which has brought a lot of content and some concrete example of technology disruption in the business and also toward procurement activities. So the move to digital is now up and running and is strongly accelerating in a fast and changing environment. So when we link procurement to digital, we are, from my view, facing two different situations. The first one is around the impact of digital on procurement way of working and performance, and I will elaborate on this one. And the second one is also the ability of procurement to bring new digital services to the company to support the business. So let's build on the first one around the digital impact on procurement way of working. So I'm fully in line with Ed when he talked about visibility. Many companies are still lacking vision on the suppliers network as a whole. I've noted that the ones which have sailed properly over the last year in the storm were the one with an integrated and really digital view on supplier data and supplier network. So I must confess that procurement digital roadmaps are not always clear and sometimes are really focused on transaction without any vision. Vision described by Ed a few minutes ago. So I think it could be a good start to start from transaction, but for sure data is key and supplier network should become a must. I have also noticed that data was part of all the conversation we had yesterday and today as well. And but how far can we go into transparency without losing traction for efficiency? I think that's what Ed said. So how to explain that investment in technology for procurement are not at the right level in many companies. So if I'm a little bit provocative, I must say that HR, finance, they have often more budget to bring digital into their practices than procurement. So there are still some work to do here to convince where to put the effective money. I would like also to highlight the challenge of data continuity from product design to suppliers through manufacturing and finally to customer. This continuity will bring lots of value to the whole ecosystem. but how many systems and interface to go through, and who is in charge of all this complex code? So I guess that could be one of the stakes for procurement and supplier relationship in the future. My second point is around the supplier business model major shift. It was mentioned by Clyde, but finding suppliers, new partners to support the business is as usual, part of the mission of procurement. And some organizations are already today installing some kind of routine with their existing suppliers portfolio and the way they were used to introduce new sources to the business. So now scouting, early discovery, deep market understanding are now put into the light more than before. And with the supplier model disruption we are facing, from product sales to service delivery, I think procurement skills should evolve to support the business changes. So it requires several competencies and skills such as technology understanding, working with unstable specification. We need to have improved IP's capabilities, and it has been mentioned during the roundtable. Legal understanding the legal impact of all these new contracts, the data, GDPR, etc., and also understanding the impact on the business, so the end of the chain. So it has been confirmed by Claes a few minutes ago. That's really key today. So technology could help procurement to drive all those activities, but I think from my perspective that the real barrier is the mindset of the buyers. So understanding the new supplier's business model and the benefit it could bring to the company is now, I must say, mandatory. There is no option. So, but let's be clear, it's a complex task, I think, to understand all the underlying risks and consequences of the technology choice made by the supplier, the impact on the company technology choices, and eventually on the customer ones. So, Hervé, that was my 2 cents. So, do you have any other insights you would like to share to close this roundtable?
Yeah, thank you, André. You know, I think it's we need to reflect on the meaning of digital technologies on our economies, on our society these days, and I think that we've been hearing about the 2 companies, and these companies are part of a very big movement that's really putting out software out of the equipments, out of infrastructure, out of product. And what we see happening is really the emergence of a software-defined world, of a world where software is orchestrating, human activities and the economic, but also on our day-to-day level. And I think we need to, really pay attention and understand how much our contribution is coming from digitalizing our procurement process versus supporting companies gaining access, to the capabilities that help, build this software-defined world. Data is used now in real time, sometimes to automate actions, sometimes, as we've seen as part of the COVID period, to enable flexibility, repurpose what we have in terms of digital assets to quickly make a difference, but also to augment human decisions, to help all of us take better decisions. And we've seen, quite a lot of examples from this throughout the 2 days, and more specifically in the last hour. But I think we need to, really see this process emerging. It's not about little islands, but it's a big whole that's being through this process. And data volume, data veracity, data variety, data velocity, and we've heard it, data security will be paramount in this transformation. Now that transformation, procurement has a pivotal role to play in it. Because we need to be business-minded to make it happen. All of this technology, and it's not just like software, but it's also connectivity technology, it's also hardware, we need to bring them together. We need to build new architectures that are supporting the business going forwards into this different world. And some of them are not coming from the traditional supplier. Maybe if we simply want to digitalize an existing production process, if we want to digitalize some of the more administrative process, that can come from our traditional supplier. But in order to be able to truly make business model transformation thanks to digital, that really requires to go and build connections, build relationship, build trust with unfamiliar partner. And we had outstanding example from both speakers on these different elements. Most of the digital solutions, we need to understand what is really bringing us a true added value. What is making the difference? What are the elements that we should be keeping control of and making sure that we can recreate this form of a vertical integration at the right point into the value chain. So ensuring we get some form of exclusive access to some of the assets, but not trying to control everything else around. There's plenty of capabilities out there that are, leveraging open source hardware, open source software, and a new set, a new world of capabilities coming from the digital giants that we need to be able to harness while making sure we retain control on what is really making a difference from a business point of view. And this will lead us to see the fifth generation of buyers, span their wings, being able to, bring some of their suppliers to visit some of the customers and clients, creating within the ecosystem, the right exchange, the right, mix and melding of knowledge coming from the supply and the demand side. And this is very exciting time. This is very interesting development that we can have in front of us. And yes, we'll need some very key skills for that. But I think I would also concur to what I've heard today earlier. A lot of the people who have working with us, working for us, have that capability. They've got that desire, not just to, procure something, but to contribute to the business, to contribute to society. So again, that's really exciting time for all the buyers around the world to be part of that change. Thank you.
Thank you, Hervé.
Back to Bernard, I think.
Thank you very much. Close to the end, I was thinking that people were sleeping, so they were not ready to stop you, or they were so amazed by your speech that people were still waiting for more. So thanks very much, Hervé. Thank you very much, Aldric, for this synthesis. It's time to close these two sessions. It was just great. I'm not going to make another synthesis on the synthesis. I just want to put some words after the words. Just to say what just the points mentioned by Hervé, we are part of a business. So this is the first point. Is we took some topics which were not necessarily only purchasing procurement topics, but which were related to purchasing and procurement, but which were business oriented. And we understand that purchasing procurement is part of a business, it's related to a business. And we have to work with the business. It's supporting the business. Our role is to help business to sell more. Our role is to help the business to sell better. So we have to think about that, and perhaps we have to think in terms of all the elements we spoke about, the technologies, the risks, and we need somehow to take some decision in terms of people, in terms of organization, in terms of process. So first point is, as been mentioned by Hervé, is about the business. We understood also about reshoring. Reshoring is not only to bring suppliers back to us, but is to relocate them closer from our different sites, wherever in the world. And the word brought by Dominique about global proximity is qualifying pretty well this new idea. Reshoring is to relocate close from our sites. It's really this global proximity about. We also understood that suppliers network management is not only about managing companies working for us, but is being capable to be selected by some suppliers. So it's the other way around. It's not we're not speaking about buying, we're speaking about selling our needs. And we have been speaking for a long time about the role of purchasing to sell. Yes, but now we have to sell our needs to be selected by the supplier. So the suppliers network management is had to be selected by the suppliers to be as a preferred clients. We also understood that we need new profiles, as we just mentioned. We need new profile with very high competencies, not only on this typical technical competencies about cost, about supplier selection, about negotiation, but much more competencies on business with new behavior. We just said, because purchasing is part of a business, we need these competencies also in relation with internal business partner and internal business partner, because we understood that they are drivers of these elements. So we need this type of new competencies, just thinking not only technical competencies, but thinking about the relation, rethinking about the behavior. We understood also that all these changes are supported and helped by technologies. And it's not really the other way around, because what is driving change is not the technology, it is the people. It's about more precisely the leaders. So technology, yes, but the technology being brought by people for people and helped by the technology. So this is a very important aspect also. We also understood that the world is shrinking, embedded in these virtual relations. And this is the reason why, as just mentioned Hervé now, we have to be very optimistic about this new world, this new, as I said yesterday, this new renaissance, this rinascimento, as said the Italian. We need to go forward. We need to be optimistic with this new relation. We have to go toward the fifth generation purchasing when past meets power. So let's think about that. So yes, it's a great moment for us, and to conclude this journey, these two sessions, I really would like to thank all our speakers, the moderators who have been working with us. I want to also thank you, all of you who have been on YouTube and VK. Thank you to the complete team who transformed this virtual ID in a very nice realization, permitting to connect the world. Over 800 participants now with 40 countries, 12 different speakers, and so on and so forth. So we used to get, as I said as an introduction, a very big conference with a lot of interaction with nice people taking coffee and so on and so forth. Today, we got much more people around the world. So this world is really shrinking, and it was just great. Thank you to our colleague from Argo & Co, who have been wonderful partners. Thank you to the team, EIPM team, to Natalia, Cecilia, Eric, and a very, very big thanks to Hervé, the thinker of this event, and to Fred, the show director. So it was a show, and we need a director. So thanks to all of them, and thanks to the rest of the team who has still been working while we were getting through the show. So this 2 days conference, have been let's say, a milestone of this 30th anniversary, EIPM 30th anniversary. We're not going to go for a complete ceremony for this 30th anniversary, but we're going to have a lot of different things during these years, a lot of webinars, which are already online on the EIPM website calendars. So a lot of we're going to these webinars. We're testing a face-to-face CPO roundtable. So we're inviting the CPOs, just checking if it's time or not to go back to face-to-face. I know we are fed up of this virtual meeting we have been part of. We're going to have also the different sessions. So this is the 30th anniversary. So if you like these two sessions, and yesterday and today's sessions, they'll be on YouTube and VK channel starting on Monday. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you to you who have been staying in front of your computer for looking at us. We'll be back, as I said yesterday. You can start changing some little things before the world is changing you. So let's go on. Thank you very much. Gracias, muito obrigado. Danke, grazie, chokran, sheshe, vlam, vam. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir et à très bientôt. Take care of yourself. Thanks a lot. It was great to be with you.
The supply management idea become more and more accepted.